Welcome to Northwest Air Guns. I'm John, and we do have a jet flying over. In this video, we're taking our Umarex Komplete and making some changes to it. If you recall, we put a video up where we did a review of the Komplete not too long ago. And if you're interested in a gun that's under $200 and gives you the PCP accuracy and power that you might be looking for, why this might be a good candidate. And we've gone and turned this from a $200 gun into, well, $350, somewhere in that range. And I'll show you what I did when we get there. You can see some of the things. We've got a aftermarket 3D printed moderator here that I got off eBay, and we put on a air tank instead of the bottles. The bottles are 12, 13 bucks each, and this tank cost about a little over $100. So I have all the fill equipment and gear, so I swapped it out for this. We're going to see how this performs compared to the nitroair cartridges. Now, I could shoot this as it is, but it's got a little more power than I want. I would rather have a few more shots and a little less power. And so we're going to detune it just a little bit. We're going to stay away from the regulator because it's hidden here somewhere in the hydraulic mechanism. And we're going to focus on the hammer spring adjustment, and I'll show you how we do that. .3, that's pretty much what it was that we got with it last time. So let's put the 3D printed moderator on it, and let's see how it sounds in. Moderator attached. It takes it down to 100.3, which is a pretty big improvement. Okay, here's our hammer spring assembly here with the guide and a washer and the spring itself. And basically what we're trying to do is adjust the pretension on this hammer. And what that means is as you cock the gun and you pull this spring back, you load the spring, and when you pull the trigger and fire the gun, it pushes the hammer forward, knocks open the valve, and if you change the tension on the spring here, you may be able to change the how hard it hits the valve, how far it knocks it open, and how long it knocks it open for. Take that washer out and see what happens. We expect, since it doesn't have as much force popping that hammer into the valve, that it should not be releasing as much air for as long, right? That's what we expect, but it doesn't always turn out the way you expect, and you get some strange results sometimes. But anyway, that's what we're going to do. Put it in like this and shoot it. So we took 5 shots over the Nate Crony using the same JSB 13.43 grain pellets, and with a fresh nitroair cartridge, we averaged about 933 feet per second with the hammer spring washer installed, and 884 feet per second without it. That works out to about a 5% drop, but it's still plenty of power for a typical airgun shooting. And here's the thing, without the hammer spring washer, the nitroair cartridge gets about 60 shots before the velocity drops off. And when the washer was installed, we were only getting about 40 shots. With the hammer spring washer removed, we shot out a string using the air tube from Pyramid Air, and we got about 70 shots before the velocity started dropping off. We started with a low of about 870 feet per second and at a high of about 925, which is a pretty big spread. As you can see, most of the shots were between 880 and 910 feet per second. And here's a comparison of the two sources. The nitroair is in red and the air tube is in blue. And you can see they follow a similar pattern. The nitroair shoots slightly faster at an average of 907 feet per second compared to the air tube at 890 feet per second. And this is over an entire string of a little over 60 shots with the nitroair and a little over 70 shots with the air tube. One thing you notice in both cases is that the velocity increases slightly as we shoot through the fill. This seems kind of odd, and the only explanation I have is that the regulator wanders a little bit as the pressure in the nitroair cartridge or the air tube falls. But it is a consistent pattern, and most of the shots still fall within a pretty tight range. Now, if this was a $1,000 gun, I'd probably be unhappy with that increasing trend in velocity over the shot string. But for a $200 gun, I'm pretty much okay with it. Let's wrap this up. Full disclosure, Umarex provided the Komplete for me to review. I did purchase the moderator off of eBay, and I purchased the air tube from Pyramid Air. And I went through a ton of pellets and a whole bunch of air. I worked my compressors to the bone. I bought several extra nitroair cartridges, and I did all that so you wouldn't have to. So let's talk about those 3 things that we mentioned at the very beginning. The first was the moderator, trying to quiet this down a little bit. And we did quiet it down. I don't know, it still seems kind of loud for a suburban backyard, but I guess every little bit helps. So the moderator was about $40, I think, shipped. I don't know if it's worth it to you or not. Okay, the second thing we were looking at was this air tube instead of the nitroair cartridges. And this cost me about $100 coming from Pyramid Air. So we compared this to the nitroair cartridge, and on one fill you get about the same velocity, same power, a little bit less, slightly, and you get more shots. Not a whole lot more, but some. 60 or 70 for the air cylinder versus about 60 for the nitroair cartridge. Now this holds 130 cc's of air. There is another one, another tank, air tank that's made by Inspire Precision, and I'll put a link to both of these in the description, and it's a little smaller at 100 cc's, and it has a gauge, whereas this one doesn't. So compare that, and the Inspire Precision is about $120, something like that. So you compare the cost of the nitroair versus these tanks, and you have to fill these tanks too. So that's just something you have to consider, the cost of the tank and the fill equipment versus, you know, just buying cartridges and swapping them out as you shoot through your string. Neither this tank or the Inspire Precision tank has a check valve, and that means to get them off you have to degas the gun, and your tank will then be totally empty, and you won't fill it back up until you put it back on the gun and you fill it back up. And I would not want to pump with a hand pump from 0 to 3,625 psi. So that's just something to consider if you're thinking about going back and forth between the two. I would start with the air tube, shoot it out, and then you could put in the nitroair cartridges. I don't think I would go the other way. And then at your leisure you could fill this back up, put it back on the gun and fill it back up. So all in all, I'm happy with the air tube. I like the shot count, the velocity. I've got all the fill gear, so it was worth it to me to go ahead and get that. And I'll probably carry a nitroair cartridge with me in the rare event that I shoot through 70 shots in one sitting and need some more power. I can take this off and put in a nitroair cartridge and get another 60 shots or so. And it's not going to be a big difference on the point of impact because the difference in velocity is not really that significant. Okay, well, the last thing we were trying to do was get a few more shots out of this thing, and we were willing to sacrifice some power, some velocity in order to get those shots. And since you can't really fool with the regulator, and you'd have to tear the whole thing apart to get to the transfer port, or you can make modifications to the hammer, or you know, that kind of stuff. The simplest way to make an adjustment on this is to pull that hammer spring, and we did that and pulled off the washer. That voids a warranty, by the way, so if you want to try something like that, don't expect to send it back in for repairs. And this kind of really is intended for people who don't have a chronograph and they're just going to take it out of the box and shoot it. And it works really well for that. This is just one small tweak that you might be able to do if you wanted to detune your gun a little bit. And I'm pretty confident that if you're trying to detune it, one way to do it is to pull that hammer spring washer, and you'll get more shots and you'll have slightly less power. I can't tell you how much or how many more shots you're going to get, that type of thing, but that would be the direction that you're going in. So overall, I'm still really impressed with this little budget rifle, even though, you know, we've turned it from a $200 gun into about a $350 gun. It's still kind of a nice little rig. And don't forget that it's a triple fuel kind of a gun, because you can still use CO2. You'll get a ton of shots on CO2, or you can use the nitroair cartridge, or you can use buy one of these air tanks and the fill equipment if you don't have it, and shoot it on air. So that's really pretty cool, and it's up to you whichever one suits your situation the best. for you to use. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.